You know, the scary thing is, there really are people like this. I'm speaking about the recent horror film Obsession, which was directed by Curry Barker. This was his first feature debut, from what I understand. It was produced by Blumhouse. It was shot for less than $1 million, and Focus Features, I believe it was Focus Features, acquired distribution rights for $15 million. So this movie made bank before it even hit the theaters, and it's doing pretty well on the big screen. So kudos to these people, because there's a lot about this film to appreciate, not just the story, but also the technical aspects of it. This does not feel like a film that was filmed for less than $1 million. I saw the budget was somewhere between $750K and $1 million. It's crazy. Crazy. It was very well done in that regard. It stars people that I've never seen before. I mean, there was one actor in here who was kind of a surprise appearance. Wasn't expecting that. It was Andy Richter. But everybody else I don't think I know. One of the guys, Cooper Tomlinson, is apparently a friend of the director. They work on stuff together. They have like a comedy sketch website or something like that. Online comedy stuff or something, whatever. But the two leads are played by Michael Johnston, who plays the character of Bear, and Inde Navarrette as Nikki. The other actress who plays in here, her name is Megan Lawless. She plays a character named Sarah. And Cooper, as I've already mentioned, he plays a character named Ian. There are these four friends. They work at this music store. They hang out together a lot. They're young 20-something kids, okay? And Bear works at this music store. He's got a crush on his coworker, Nikki. He pines away for Nikki. Yet it seems she has put him in the friend zone, but maybe not-ish, because she gives him these mixed signals before things really start going down. There's a scene with them. He's driving her home, and the things she's saying to him, I could see why someone might perceive that as being not necessarily leading him on, but just giving him these mixed signals. You know, it seems maybe she's into him, maybe not, I don't know. She says if she has a crush on someone, they'd never know. So then she says other things that makes you wonder, I can only talk to you about these things, Bear. You know, stuff like that. It's a good lead up for him to do what he does in that moment. What I've left out is before all this happens, he goes to this novelty or crystal shop or whatever, you know, juju stuff, and he buys this thing called, I think it's called a One Wish. He thinks it's a joke. He buys it as a gag gift. But after he has this conversation with her, with the mixed signals going on, he just, you know, he's like, what the hell? And he makes this wish. He breaks the stick, whatever. And pretty immediately after that, things start to shift with Nikki. But the thing is, the way events play out, you could read into it that, yeah, she really is into him, despite some of these weird things that's happening, because they do use, or she does use at one point, a feasible explanation for why she was acting the way she was. So he doesn't catch on to it right away. In fact, it takes him a bit. Eventually, he does figure it out. And that moment, I think it's the moment that we've seen in the trailer where he's making the phone call to the number that was on that box. I think that's the moment when he for sure knows that this is what's going on, and it's because of this one wish thing. After he makes the wish, like I said, things shift, and it just gets worse from there. And the horror of this, it stems from a situation that is spiraling further and further out of control, and there are these very disturbing shifts between mildly creepy to terrifying that happen during certain moments. It's labeled as a humor/comedy or maybe black comedy or something. I did see that genre attached to this film, along with other, you know, like horror or whatever. But we were talking about this last night on a live stream discussion that I had with Deleted Scenes and Enigma Severus. And Deleted saw the comedy in certain moments. I think Enigma did too. I did not view this as comedic in any way. And I think part of that might just be because the way she acted, even though it wasn't really her fault, the stuff that she was doing while she was under the spell of this wish, the way she was acting was so disturbingly realistic. And I'm not referring to her acting, which was fantastic, by the way. It was so disturbingly realistic, and some people that I know in my life who have been in situations with freaky girls. I had a family member who was killed by his crazy wife. So it kind of reminds me, the way I felt about this, of the reaction I had to a Bill Burr stand-up routine where he was talking about an instance where his girlfriend, now wife, had physically abused him. And apparently it was a pattern. She was an abuser. And I remember not finding that funny, even though there were certain times he was being funny, some of the stuff he was saying and the way he was acting. I didn't find it funny because I was thinking about my great uncle who was murdered. I was thinking about other men that I know in my life, some very close to me, that have been in pretty toxic relationships with terrible women. So I couldn't find the humor in this. It's not the film's fault. This is a me thing. But there's a lot of stuff that works in here. And I've already touched on some of it, just the way it was done, for the budget that it was done on, and the performance of the girl who plays Nikki, Inde, and the guy who plays Bear. Both of them were extraordinary. Michael, the actor who played Bear, he had this wonderful ability to do things with his face that tell you exactly what he's feeling and how the expression could shift. And the same way for the actress, for Inde. Her ability to flip between personalities on a dime was eerie, very unsettling, deeply unsettling. And she was able to carry this, what I thought was an incredibly demanding performance, physically and emotionally, because of some of the stuff she was doing to herself and the way she was going back and forth with these extremes of her emotion. She was great. No issues at all with any of the actors. This film isn't perfect to me. I know a lot of people love it. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I'm not in love with it. Part of that is just the subject matter. I just didn't fully click with it for the same reasons that I just explained, but there were some other issues I had with it, which I'll touch on after a bit. They're not huge, but they were enough to kind of irritate me a little bit. But the entire cast, I thought, did a really good job. The supporting cast was great as well. I thought that the camera work, this touches on what I've already mentioned about how it was filmed on such a low budget, but the camera work and the lighting and the sound design, they do a lot in this film. There is a scene where she is in the darkness. This is kind of early on. She's mostly in darkness. You can see her silhouette, but you can see her eyes are kind of not glowing, but you know how light shines on your eyes and you can see the eyes reflecting that light. That was about the only thing that you could see was her eyes. And it kind of made you think about, whatever demon or entity or whatever was possessing her or she was under the control of. And it was eerie. It was eerie. And this film is also mostly practical effects driven. There does seem to be some CGI going on in a couple of places. There was something she did with her facial expressions at one point, and it did look like they had done something to the lower part of her face, or maybe it was really just her. If so, oh my gosh, that looked extremely painful. But there were other times where she would be moving very spastically and weird. That was disturbing. That was either done with CGI or something that felt pretty similar to stop motion. It was just strange. You will know it when you see it. Something else that makes this film pretty interesting and solid for an indie or low-budget film, original, is there's a lot of complex themes going on, and obviously metaphor for toxic relationships, abusive relationships, sort of trying to get out of abusive relationships, but not really because you're still drawn to your abuser, and the tendency for people to ignore or overlook behavior that is not normal in public or social situations because, it's embarrassing and you don't really want to get involved and you're not sure what to do. But there were moments like that happen in here. And it also makes you think about who is the real villain in this story. I am of the mindset that the character of Bear, he's a villain, but he doesn't start off that way. And even though there is this moment, this shift where he does slide into villain territory, it's not so clear cut. It's not so black and white. It's very gray. It's very nuanced. There's stuff that happens. Yes, he's a weak character and he takes advantage. Well, in the moment, he didn't feel like he was taken advantage. He thought it was genuine what was happening, even though he was a little startled by it. But once he knows, he makes these half-hearted attempts. Some people feel very strongly, very clearly, he is this, and he did this to her. He raped her. Those moments where we do see them being intimate, it hasn't really gotten to the point that he knows. So I don't think that it's as simple as just saying he's an outright villain. I think he's a very complex and nuanced villain. He's a very weak person, but he does make attempts to rectify the situation. There are better ways he could have tried to do it, and that does tie into one of my problems with some of the writing in here. I thought he waited far, far too long to actually try to do something. Obviously, the plot needed it to happen. And when I say actually try to do something, I mean take aggressive action to try to do something, to fix this thing. He waits far too long. I know that is for purposes of the story because the situation had to get to this point. But I thought early on, well, he needs to do this thing. He didn't do this particular thing until much later in the film. And the whole time I'm focused on the fact that he acted so late when one of the first things he should have done, when he started to notice this just didn't feel right, and it was more and more troubling what was happening, he didn't act on that until far too late. And I think something that would have satisfied me is if he had acted on it sooner, but they had figured out a way to write him out of that situation, or to write a path that demonstrated to us he had made this legitimate attempt, but this thing is a stumbling block. It's not going to be as easy as he thinks to fix it. And then I could have gone with it a little bit more. But to me, that felt like a contrivance to service the plot. Another thing that really was probably this is the most glaring issue for me. It's minor in comparison to the story as a whole. But there is a moment where these two people are together and something happens. They both see that this thing has occurred. Then they go their separate ways. One of the people that was there when this happened goes to this other person's house that was with him when they both witnessed this thing and says, "Hey, guess what? This happened." They had both just seen that it happened. Why is he suddenly going to this other person's house to say this thing? That was very clearly a contrived setup to put that character in danger for purposes of the plot. That was very weakly written. I did not like that at all. That was probably one of the things that bothered me the most. And then there was another moment where someone demands that another person come to meet them in the middle of the night at this location, and I thought that also felt like a contrivance. It did not feel organic to me. You know that it is obviously a lead up to something happening, but the way that lead up was constructed also didn't track for me. And then one of the last things that I kind of was thinking about when the movie was playing, I didn't mention it in the live stream, but it was something that kind of flitted across my mind. You know, with everything going on, some of her behaviors, her problematic behaviors, started to feel repetitive to me. And I was getting annoyed with the fact that this film kept drawing some of these things out. Okay, we've already seen this creepiness. We've already seen this. I started to be kind of ready for it to be done with and over. So this film is about, 100 minutes or so. And I feel like it was a little bit, just a touch too long. But that also might be a me thing because of the subject matter and the fact that I couldn't find the humor in it that some people did. It might just be only a me thing. But yeah, it did start to get a little grating after a while. However, my overall verdict for this is that I think it's a solid horror film of 2026. It's an interesting original story with no agenda, nothing like that, done by a very talented director and storyteller. So I do recommend that you guys check it out if you're fans of horror. I think you'll enjoy this. I heard some people talking about it when I left the theater. One of the people behind me said, well, I think that's the best horror film of the year. And I know Deleted feels the same way. He not only feels that this is the best horror film of 2026, but one of the best films of the entire year. I don't think I can go that far with it, even though I did appreciate it and do have mostly very positive things to say about it. It's not going to land on my favorites list. And again, me thing, not really a reflection of the quality of this film because it's worth a watch just to see how well it was executed on the budget that they had. I can't get over that. I'm so impressed with that. Seriously, you guys, very impressed. So yeah, that's all I have to say for now about Obsession. If you guys check it out, let me know what you think. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. See you in the next one. Bye.